Good morning and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View on the 27th of December. This morning in your Celtic news, we're going to do things a little bit differently this morning. We're going to look at some headlines from media around the world and see what they're saying about Celtic FC. Now, the first one that we're going to head to, we're going to go to Italy. We're going to go to Italy, and the headline is Inter Milan pursuit of Danish rising star reaches dead end. Midfielder is determined to stay at Celtic. Inter Milan's chase of Matt O'Reilly has reportedly hit a brick wall, with the player hell-bent on staying at Celtic. Recent reports from the United Kingdom claim that even though the Inter Milan had entered the fray for the up-and-coming star, however, emerging news has now ruled out an immediate exit. According to local media, O'Reilly is happy to stay at Celtic Park for the time being. The midfielder is well aware of the interest of his services and yet has decided to pledge his loyalty to the Glasgow-based club. That one's coming straight out of Italy this morning. Next up, I'm going to head back to Scotland. I'm going to head to Dundee. It's not Dundee. It's actually the Mail Online. The Mail Online. I shouldn't even be reading this one, but Dundee 0 Celtic 3. Scottish champions extend their lead to the top of at the top of the table on Boxing Day, thanks to goals from Paolo Bernardo and Mikey Johnson as they head into Saturday's vital derby in winning form. And the only reason I'm reading this is because it's funny. There's been times down the years when Mikey Johnson might have struggled to win a popularity contest in his own household. Dogged by the inconsistency and injury, farmed out on loan to a team in Portugal, Brendan Rodgers' faith in the winger has often been a source of mystery. But this was the day when the Celtic manager's patience and belief in the 24-year-old was blatantly rewarded, says the Mail Online. While Johnson stepped onto the field at Dens Park to replace Lewis Palmer, his side's dominant performance had not yet secured them the whole 3 points. There was a non-negotiable in the title race. Within minutes, the Ireland international, cut in from the flank, unleashed a shot which brought his first goal in a Celtic jersey in 1,486 days. And we'll leave that one there. Next, we're going to head over to Ireland. We're going to head over to, and we're going to read the Irish Independent and see what they're saying about the Celtic game yesterday. The headline is The Irish in Action. Mikey Johnson, Alan Brown and James McLean all on target. Ireland winger Mikey Johnson had a St. Stephen's Day to remember as he scored for Celtic for the first time in over 4 years in his side 3-0 win at Dundee. After being challenged by Brendan Rodgers to grab the bull by the horns and kick on this month, the 24-year-old has responded emphatically today by bagging a brace within 8 minutes of coming off the bench. Johnson was introduced in the 79th minute for his 9th appearance in an injury hit campaign, and he made an instant impact, finding the net just 4 minutes later from the outside of the box. Next up was an injury time, wrapping up with 3 points for his side. It's a timely boost for the 8-time caps Celtic native, who's before today had not scored since December the 1st, 2019. Anyway, move on from there. Move on to another Irish paper. We head on the wait a minute there. The IrishTimes.com. That was the Irish Independent. Now we head on to the Irish Times. Mikey Johnson scores 2 late goals as Celtic prove too strong for Dundee. Injury time. Centre back Cameron Carter-Vickers is a concern for the derby next week. Dundee 0, Celtic 3. Paolo Bernardo and Mikey Johnson were the unlikely goal heroes as they went on to beat Dundee yesterday, which is some headline, I've got to say. Let's move on to the next one. And it is Yahoo News that I'm looking at. Callum McGregor believes that Celtic are slick and back to their best ahead of the Glasgow derby. And that's on Yahoo News. It says, everything Callum McGregor said to Sky Sports after the 3-0 win over Dundee at Dens Park. Callum, tell us about the qualities you had to show to get the win, said the interviewer. It's always difficult, said Callum, especially when you come here and you know that they're going to play a low block. It's all about trying to get that first goal. And if the game stays at 0-0, it'll probably suit them. It was an intense straight away. You can see the first half, we probably deserved a goal for our play. In the second half, you keep doing it. You keep being patient, you work the ball into the right areas, and you'll get your rewards at the end. So it was a good performance. He was then asked, Callum McGregor, how was the key? What was the key to the patience today? He said, that's it. Teams will try and frustrate us, try to sort of block us in the box. They'll try and force us around the outside. We've got to show quality in different moments, said Callum, and patience is always the key. Although, let's face it, it's pretty boring to watch, Callum, and patience isn't a virtue that Celtic fans generally have in the stands and watching home on the television. Next headline is one that I probably shouldn't read either, but we're heading back to Scotland and to the Daily Record of the Daily Rangers. Celtic advance in Jung transfer talks. Boss receives brutal, clumsy situation caveat. The midfielder's name has been floated in South Korean media as he might leave the K-League for Celtic Park. Do we really need... I think this one's a lot of nonsense, if you ask me. Are Celtic really going to go for another midfielder that, let's face it, could be away in January for the Asia Cup games? I don't think there's any need to really go any further for that one. I don't think Brendan Rodgers particularly is overwhelmed with buying too many players from that side of the planet, purely for the fact that they don't have enough European level experience playing football. And you can see over the European level, well, the European results over the last couple of years, they've not been able to hit that high that maybe a team full of more players that had played European style football knew the European way that European players will play, the way that play acting, going down, slowing the game down. I think these players kind of struggle with it. So is that a story that's worth even reading anymore? No, not at all. We move on to that, up to Dundee. Up to Dundee, we get the Courier. 3 Dundee talking points from Celtic defeat. Trevor Carson reacts and needs a striker. The Dark Blues were well beaten at home to the champions. Boxing Day is always anything but fun for Dundee at Dens Park as they failed to lay a glove on the champions. Celtic Mikey Johnson landed knockout blows after the Dark Blues never looked back. And they ended they're waiting on a 35-year wait for a win over Celtic. A 35-year wait for a win over Celtic. And then we'll head over to Australia, head over to the other part of the world and see what the Western Australia has said about the Celtic game yesterday. They've got the headline that Celtic beat Dundee and extended lead ahead of the Rangers clash. They're then going to say that Brendan Rodgers is hopeful that defender Cameron Carter-Vickers will brush off his Dens Park injury concern to face Premiership rivals Rangers on Saturday. The Celtic manager gave his strongest suggestion yet that Rio Hatate and Liel Abada could feature in the Glasgow derby. They did say Glasgow derby and not that other word that we don't use anymore and we haven't used since 2012 when they died. And anyway, the champions ensured that they'll go to the Parkhead clash top of the table by beating Dundee 3-0 on Wednesday, thanks to a Paulo Bernardo Celtic's first goal and substitute Mikey Johnson late double. But the sight of Cameron Carter-Vickers walking off shortly after the 52nd minute briefly curtailed the visiting fans' celebrations. The influential centre-back, who missed 2.5 games with a hamstring complaint earlier this month, and has Celtic fans hoping that the issue does not lead to a similar outcome. He felt a bit of a tightness, and we said to him before, he didn't need to be a hero. If he felt anything, just come off straight away, said Brendan Rodgers. We're hoping it's okay, but we'll find out in the next couple of days. Abada last played for Celtic in their victory over the Ibrox side on September the 3rd, before suffering a thigh injury while training with Israel. Hatate has been out 2 months with a hamstring injury. They could be around, said Brendan Rodgers. It's another thing to be ready to start. Of course, Liel Abada looked really good on the field when he trained with the group on Christmas Day. So that's interesting that Liel Abada is back training with the main group. He is back training, as is Rio Hatate. Will he try the two of them? I think that he'll probably come off the bench, if anything. Will he start with them or will he put them on the bench? Celtic also saw Paulo Bernardo and Mikey Johnson give the Hoops a major morale boost. The on-loan Benfica midfielder poked home a close range from a Johnson cutting from the left-hand side. Johnson hasn't scored since December 2019. Is that enough to give Mikey Johnson a new contract, even a year extension? That was a part of the debate last night on the One Celtic Fans View, live after the game, and it kind of split the comment section. I think that Mikey Johnson, it looks as if he might get an extended year's deal at Celtic, and I think that the only reason that they'll do that, Celtic, is for the Scottish contingent for European competitions. Right, let's go back to Scotland and we'll read the Scotsman.com. Celtic debrief. Mikey Johnson states Rangers start claim. Remarkable 34 game run. But the duo shine and Kyogo struggles. 34 matches is an extended, long, unbeaten run at Dens Park. Celtic were forced to work harder than they might have liked, particularly given the crucial nature of their next assignment, is the report. Now, we're going to go into some Celtic transfer news, first of all. There's a report coming out of Southampton that Southampton are willing to pay in the region of 6 to 6.5 million for a player that Celtic have been looking at. Yes, if Southampton are ready to make a move for Aberdeen striker Bojan Mavovsky, they can take him because it's 6.5 million. He is not worth the money. The 24-year-old has been watched by the Scottish champions at various points of the season, who are looking to strengthen an attack. And according to some of the papers, Southampton's talent spotter Darren Mowbray has been selling Hierarchy to make a move in January for the player. If they want him for 6.5 million, they can take him for 6.5 million. Tell me in the comments, do you really think that the Aberdeen player is worth 6.5 million? I don't think so personally. I think maybe 4.5, yes, at a push. 4, 3 with add-ons, yes. But 6 million, if they want him, they can come and get him, because I don't think he's worth that money at all. Anyway, Celtic's win over Dundee continues Brendan Rodgers' side after that sort of dip in form. The run-up to the game on Saturday lunchtime, the 2 victories over Livingston and Dundee, 5 goals scored, none conceded, will give Celtic a huge boost this week before the top of the table clash. One player, ex-player that's been talking about it is Scott Brown. He was obviously saying that, he said live on Sky that, yeah, of course Celtic will do it. Brendan Rodgers knows how to win against them. We won against them with no fans at Ibrox and with a much depleted team, with a lot of people out injured at the beginning of the season, and we cruised to a victory that day with no fans, remember. So it's back on our own patch. Can Celtic do it this weekend? Come and have a chat with us live at 6 p.m. Celtic part-time and talk about it. However, Scott Brown went on to say, look, when you think about it, Cameron Carter-Vickers was on a wish list at Celtic. For me, he's compared to Virgil van Dijk, said Scott Brown. Do you think that he is the same cloth as Virgil van Dijk? I don't think so. Virgil van Dijk was sold for 75 million. I don't think that Cameron Carter-Vickers will ever be sold for 75 million in his career. It's just unfortunate. But you can see the similarities that Scott is talking about. He says, look, the last 2 clean sheets, the last 2 games, it was a good performance, he's a threat going forward. He looks solid at the back. So let's hope and pray that Cameron Carter-Vickers is fit, because the defence really needs him when he's in the team. That was Scott Brown talking about. And that is your Celtic news this morning. I hope you've enjoyed that. It's a little bit of the headlines from publications around the world. And on that note, have a fantastic day, Celtic fans all around the world. Lit.